The blood was still fresh on the tile, a crimson stain spreading like a morbid spiderweb. My heart hammered in my chest, not from fear, but from a strange, unsettling calm. It had happened again. Another one gone. "I told you, darling," a voice said, low and throaty, from behind me. "This one wouldn't last." I turned, the scent of lavender and something metallic, like iron, swirling around me. Standing in the doorway, a figure draped in black silk, her face obscured by a shadow. "You shouldn't have touched him." The voice was a whisper, a caress tinged with icy disdain. "But he was different," I stammered, my eyes glued to the lifeless body in front of me. The apartment lights seemed to flicker, casting grotesque shadows that danced on the walls. "Different? How so? Was he kinder than the others? More compassionate? Did he love you for your unique nature?" She laughed, a sound that chilled me to the bone. She entered, the black silk shimmering like a morbid shroud. Her eyes, when they finally unveiled themselves, were an unsettling shade of amber, glowing like a predator's in the fading light. "Every single one of them, my dear," she continued, "they fall victim to the same fate. Violence, death, a gruesome end. You, my dear, are a harbinger of death, an echo of ancient curses. These men, they see beauty in your darkness, but they have no idea what they're treading upon." My past unfolded before my eyes, a tapestry of shattered lives stitched together in a dark, macabre quilt. Michael, the first one, crushed under a falling beam during a seemingly insignificant earthquake. Ryan, devoured by a pack of wild dogs while he strolled through a park, an event dismissed as a freakish accident. Even Alex, whose sudden heart attack during a routine checkup was deemed a medical mystery. Each one dead. Each one loving me with an intensity that was terrifying, an adoration that felt like a morbid fascination. "The truth," she whispered, her voice a chilling lullaby, "is that you are cursed, child. Bound to a force that lies beyond human comprehension. You are the embodiment of doom, a conduit to the dark forces that consume everything around you. But I don't want this," I choked, my voice cracking. She approached me, her eyes burning with an unsettling light. "You can't escape it, darling. You are the bringer of ruin, a beacon for darkness. Accept your fate, or watch as those you hold dear become the next victims." The reality of my situation crashed down on me, heavy and suffocating. My life, a series of unfortunate accidents, all conveniently coinciding with my romantic interests. My love, a curse. My touch, a conduit to death. Why? Why me? I sobbed, the anguish tearing at me, a raw wound exposed to the world. She smirked, a predator's grin, a cruel mockery of compassion. "Oh, you were chosen, darling. Chosen for a purpose beyond your comprehension. A twisted design meant for a grander scheme. You are the conduit, the vessel, the embodiment of a force that lies dormant within you. And your fate, my dear," her voice dropped to a whisper, sending shivers down my spine, "is to become the catalyst of its awakening." With each passing day, the fear deepened. The whispers in the dark grew louder, the shadows lurking in the corners seemed to dance in anticipation. The world, once vibrant with color, became shrouded in a gloomy pall, a dreary reflection of my own inner turmoil. I started seeing patterns, echoes of my past in the lives of others. A car accident that killed a young couple, a fatal illness that took an artist at the peak of his career, the sudden disappearance of a promising musician. The darkness I carried seemed to seep into everyone's lives, leaving a trail of devastation in its wake. Then, one day, I met him. Ethan. He was a writer, a dreamer, a man who saw beyond the shadows, who saw the light in me even when I couldn't find it in myself. He loved me, not despite my past, but because of it. He understood the darkness that consumed me, the pain that haunted me. He even saw the beauty in it. He was, I knew, the exception, the anomaly in my cursed existence. He was the one who could break the cycle, the one who could redeem me from the darkness. I fell for him deeply, fiercely, desperately. I told him everything, confessed my fear of hurting him, of becoming his death. He held me in his arms, his gaze unwavering, his touch soothing. "I know you're afraid," he whispered, his voice a balm to my tormented soul. "But I'm not afraid of you, darling. I'm afraid of what they will do to you. To us." With Ethan, I felt a strange serenity, a glimmer of hope in the encroaching darkness. But it was a fragile peace, a delicate balance that could be shattered in an instant. The shadows never truly left, they lurked in the corners, waiting, watching. One evening, Ethan and I were walking home from a movie. The street was deserted, the silence broken only by the soft crunch of our footsteps on the pavement. As a sudden gust of wind swept through the street, bringing with it a chill that went straight to my bones, I felt it. A presence, cold and menacing, swirling around us. Ethan seemed to sense it too. He stopped, his eyes widening in alarm. The wind picked up, whipping around us, carrying with it a low, guttural growl that sent shivers down our spines. Then it moved. It came for us, a dark, swirling mass of shadows, emitting a chilling, otherworldly aura that made my blood run cold. "Run, Ethan!" I screamed, pushing him back, my voice trembling with fear. He hesitated for a moment, his face etched with concern, then he looked at me, his eyes filled with an unwavering, almost fierce love. "I won't leave you," he said, his voice rock solid, unwavering in the face of the approaching darkness. The shadows surged forward, engulfing us in their suffocating embrace. A scream, choked and desperate, escaped my lips as I felt a searing pain rip through my body. Then silence. Ethan, my Ethan. He wouldn't succumb to the curse. He wouldn't be another victim. Not this time. He was gone, vanished into the shadows. But I was still there, standing amidst the chaos, the darkness swirling around me, consuming me. A cold emptiness had taken hold of me, a hollow ache that mirrored the gaping void left by Ethan's absence. No longer bound by the fear of causing his death, I stood my ground, facing the terrifying darkness. My fear was replaced by a burning rage, a simmering anger that threatened to consume me from within. "You won't win," I whispered, my voice laced with defiance. "I'm not your puppet anymore." I looked at my hands, the dark energy swirling around them. But instead of fear, I felt a surge of power, a sense of control. It was still there, the curse, but it felt different now. It felt empowered. That night I didn't run. I didn't hide. I confronted the shadows, the whispers, the dark force that haunted me. And as I embraced it, it embraced me back. My fear transformed into acceptance, my helplessness into understanding. I was a part of this darkness, connected to it in a way that transcended fear and comprehension. It was a revelation, a terrifying, yet exhilarating truth. I was not simply cursed. I was a conduit, a force of nature, a being of power. I was both the victim of the shadows and their master. The world around me started to change. My touch no longer brought destruction, but a sense of balance. The darkness, no longer a curse, was a power, a force to be channeled, to be wielded. My life, a twisted tapestry of tragedy and loss, became a canvas upon which I painted a new reality. I was no longer the one who brought death, but the one who saved it. The one who held the balance, who walked the tightrope between the darkness and the light, embracing both with a newfound understanding. Was Ethan still alive? Was he trapped within the darkness? I yearned desperately to find him, to bring him back to the light. But I knew that he was safe, I knew that his death was not the end, but a transformation. We were both part of something bigger, something more complex than what mortal minds could comprehend. I was not the one who had been cursed. I was the one who had been chosen. Chosen to be a force of balance, to bring order to the chaos, to walk the line between the darkness and the light. And in my heart, I knew that Ethan was out there, somewhere, waiting for me. And as long as I held on to this new understanding, as long as I embraced the darkness and the light within me, our paths would cross again. We would find each other, in the heart of the storm, in the depths of the darkness, in the beauty of the light. We would find each other, and together, we would change the world.
It started innocently enough. A simple wish, a desperate plea whispered into the void, hoping for a miracle. My life had become a tangled mess, a relentless string of bad luck that had knotted itself around my throat, choking the breath out of me. My job, a mere flicker of hope in the ever-drowning abyss of despair, had vanished as quickly as it came, leaving me stranded in a sea of bills I couldn't fathom paying. It was then that I stumbled upon Madame Evangeline's emporium, nestled in a corner of the city that seemed to exist just beyond the veil of the mundane. Drawn by an inexplicable pull, I crossed the threshold, the bell above the door chiming a disconcerting jingle as I entered. The shop reeked of secrets, ancient and potent. Shelves overflowing with arcane trinkets, their dusty surfaces reflecting the dim light of flickering candles, sprawled across the walls. Bottles containing unidentifiable liquids bubbled and hissed, their murky contents stirring anxieties I hadn't known I possessed. And then there she was, Madame Evangeline, seated behind a mahogany desk that seemed to absorb the whispers of 1,000 forgotten desires. She was a woman of perplexing contradictions. Ancient and yet strangely vibrant, her eyes, the color of polished obsidian, held a depth that promised both wisdom and unsettling mysteries. Her face, etched with the lines of a life lived in the shadows, radiated a power that both frightened and intrigued me, a power I desperately wanted to harness. "You seek a solution," she said, her voice a low purr that seemed to emanate from the very depths of the earth. I nodded, my throat tightening as the weight of my despair settled over me. "I offer a chance," she continued, her eyes piercing through my facade, "but every chance comes with a price." She presented me with a simple, hand-drawn contract. It was a labyrinth of cryptic phrases that sent shivers down my spine, a promise of fortune in exchange for something I couldn't even begin to comprehend. But desperation, a gnawing hunger for a way out, made me sign, my pen trembling as I scribbled my name at the bottom. The following day, a miracle occurred. A new job, a golden opportunity with a salary that could erase all my worries, appeared out of nowhere. I had everything I had ever wanted, and I was indebted to Madame Evangeline. The debt, however, was not a monetary one. It was a cosmic imbalance, a subtle shift in the fabric of my reality that I could only begin to grasp. My luck, now an unpredictable force, seemed to waver like a flickering candle, constantly teetering on the verge of going out. For months, I lived in a bubble of unfulfilled happiness, haunted by a gnawing anxiety that I couldn't quite articulate. I was, after all, living the life I had always craved, the life I had dreamt of. But the price, the true price of my deal, remained a phantom, a lurking shadow that began to invade every aspect of my existence. One night, I woke to the sensation of being watched. There was a presence, a coldness that whispered sinister promises in the darkness. The air around me crackled, the silence broken only by my frantic heartbeat. Fear, an icy tendril, began to coil around my heart. The whispers escalated, growing in urgency and intensity, and I could no longer ignore the gnawing fear that had become my constant companion. "They're coming," the whispering voice said, a voice that sounded like the grinding of bones against stone. "They're coming for you." Panic, a primal instinct, took over as I looked frantically around my apartment, searching for a source, for an explanation. But there was nothing. The whisper remained, a chilling presence that spoke of imminent danger, a threat I couldn't understand. It was then that I realized the truth. The deal I had made wasn't just a manipulation of luck, it was a contract with the very essence of darkness. I had traded my future for a temporary reprieve, a fleeting glimpse of the paradise I had so desperately desired. But in doing so, I had inadvertently invited something else into my life, something sinister, something ancient, something that craved my very soul. For months, I was plagued by visions, fragmented flashes of an unseen world where shadows danced and whispers turned into screams. The line between reality and nightmare blurred, the fear becoming a tangible presence, an unseen entity that lurked in the corners of my room, watching, waiting. Finally it came. One evening, as I walked home from work, a chilling draft swept through the streets, carrying with it the scent of decay and the taste of fear. I could feel the eyes of the unseen, their gaze piercing through me like daggers. The shadows swirled around me, coalescing into the form of a monstrous being. Its body, a grotesque amalgamation of flesh and bone, pulsed with an unnatural energy, its eyes burning with a malevolent light. It was the manifestation of my debt, the price I had paid for my brief moment of contentment. I ran, a desperate scramble for survival fueled by the adrenaline of terror. I knew there was no escape. My deal had been sealed, my fate predetermined. I ran until my lungs burned and my legs screamed in protest. But the being was relentless, its presence stalking me, its whispers turning into chilling roars. The streets, once familiar, had become a labyrinth of fear, each turn leading me closer to the inevitable. The final confrontation came in a small, abandoned alley. The darkness, thick and suffocating, seemed to amplify the creature's presence, its grotesque form looming over me. The air crackled with energy, the stench of decay and fear engulfing me. "You made a deal," it growled, its voice rasping like dry leaves swirling in a winter wind. "You are mine." I fought back, fueled by a desperation that bordered on madness. But it was a futile effort. The creature, a manifestation of my own fear and guilt, was too powerful. The final image I saw before darkness consumed me was the creature's face, contorted in a grotesque smile, its eyes reflecting the pure, unadulterated malice that had become my reality. I awoke in a cold sweat, my heart pounding against my ribs. It was just a dream, a nightmare fueled by anxieties that had taken root in my subconscious. But the fear remained, a persistent tremor that vibrated through every bone in my body. I knew, deep down, that it wasn't just a dream. The debt remained, a constant reminder of the price I had paid for my brief moment of happiness. Madame Evangeline's sinister smile, a haunting image seared into my mind, was no longer just a fleeting memory. It was a reflection of my own folly, a reminder of the darkness I had unleashed. I am still indebted to the voodoo shop, to the entity I have unwittingly bound myself to. The whispers have faded, but the fear remains. I live with a constant unease, a perpetual sense of dread that coils around me like a serpent, waiting for the moment it can strike. The deal may have been broken, the contract seemingly fulfilled, but I am no longer the same. I am a changed man, forever marked by the darkness that I have encountered. And I know, with a certainty that chills me to the bone, that the price I paid will never truly be settled. The darkness remains, a constant presence, a flickering flame waiting to be rekindled.
As I wandered through the labyrinthine hallways of my ancestral abode, my footsteps echoing through the eerie silence, a peculiar sound caught my ear. A soft creak, as if a long-forgotten door was yearning to be opened, beckoned me towards a hidden realm. Curiosity twinged at my soul, and with trepidation, I cautiously approached the source of the mysterious noise. Concealed beneath a layer of dust and cobwebs, an unassuming door lay forgotten, its surface adorned with intricate carvings that hinted at a forgotten past. My heart pounded in anticipation as I reached out and turned the rusted handle, the screech of metal on metal sending shivers down my spine. As the door swung open, a musty scent filled the air, carrying with it an aura of long-abandoned secrets. Dust danced in the faint moonlight that streamed through the single window, illuminating a small, windowless room. Its walls were lined with shelves, each filled with an eclectic assortment of antiquities, faded photographs, tarnished jewelry, and a peculiar mirror that seemed to shimmer with an otherworldly glow. My breath caught in my throat as I drew closer to the mirror. Its surface was unblemished, reflecting only the dimly lit room and my own terrified visage. But as I gazed into it, something peculiar occurred. The reflection began to shift, the familiar features of my family distorting into something unknown. Before my startled eyes, a different family emerged from the depths of the mirror. A young couple stood side by side, their faces etched with an expression of mingled joy and sorrow. They were holding a small child, its tiny body wrapped in a delicate blanket. The mirror pulsed with an ethereal light, and I felt an inexplicable connection to the strangers within its depths. A wave of emotions washed over me, longing, nostalgia, and a profound sense of loss. It was as if I knew them, had lived 1,000 lives with them. Yet, their faces remained unfamiliar, their names lost to the annals of time. Suddenly, the image in the mirror flickered, and the happy family was replaced by a scene of chaos and despair. The room was engulfed in flames, the walls crumbling around the trapped figures. The young couple fought desperately to save their child, but the relentless blaze consumed them all, their screams echoing through the silence. I gasped in horror, my body trembling with the weight of the tragedy I had witnessed. The mirror pulsed once more, and the nightmare subsided, leaving only the empty reflection of the forgotten room. Overwhelmed by a mix of emotions, I stumbled away from the cursed mirror, my mind reeling from the revelation it had shown me. Who were these people? How were they connected to me? And what dark secret lay hidden within the confines of this forgotten realm? Driven by an insatiable need for answers, I began to search the room, hoping to find some clue that could unravel the mystery of the strange mirror. On one of the shelves I discovered an old, leather-bound journal, its pages filled with faded handwriting. As I gingerly opened the journal, the words danced before my eyes like ghosts from a forgotten past. The diary belonged to the young woman I had seen in the mirror, a woman named Amelia. Her words painted a vivid picture of a life filled with love, loss, and ultimately tragedy. Amelia had married a man named William, and together they had brought a beautiful child into the world. But their happiness was short-lived. A terrible fire consumed their home, taking everything they held dear. Amelia's words were filled with heartbreak and despair. She wrote of her unwavering love for her family and her desperate attempts to save them. But fate had a cruel twist in store for her, and in the end, she was forced to watch helplessly as her world crumbled around her. As I turned the final page of Amelia's diary, a profound sadness washed over me. The strangers in the mirror were not strangers at all, but my own long-lost ancestors. The fire that had claimed their lives had left an unhealed wound in the fabric of our family history, a secret that had been hidden away for generations. But why had I been chosen to uncover this forgotten tragedy? What purpose did it serve to unveil the pains of the past? As I stood there in the eerie glow of the cursed mirror, I couldn't shake the feeling that my family's history was far from over. The past had reached out to me, and I knew that I had to confront the darkness that still lingered within our ancestral home.